Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Our Patreon-sponsored extravaganza continues with something of an odd request. Usually, since the patron can request most anything, they'll just straight up ask for the movie. But in this case, they actually asked for the comic adaptation. Once again, we travel to Marvel Super Special and its penultimate issue. The actual final issue was an adaptation of the Howard the Duck movie, so you can see why it was cancelled after that. Labyrinth was Jim Henson's second attempt at a fantasy film after the lukewarm reception to The Dark Crystal. It sadly also didn't do great at the box office, save for the international market, but like The Dark Crystal, achieved a lot more reevaluation and appreciation as time went on. It's also a movie that I had never actually seen in full until this review. Sure, I knew plenty about it thanks to other reviewers and, of course, some of the David Bowie songs in it, but never actually sat and watched it before. Something that has shocked some people who I told. And I think people forget sometimes just how much media, movies, TV shows, etc. gets released over the course of even a single year, so there's always stuff out there that's bound to be missed. I wasn't really that into fantasy as a kid until I saw Fellowship of the Ring in theaters, and even that was more of the epic battles and knightly combat style of fantasy, rather than something a touch more whimsical like Labyrinth. The movie is good, but it's a bit dreamlike, a bit minimalistic on the dialogue, at least in terms of giving exposition. There are things that can be inferred, things you can read into, but it's more a fairy tale kind of thing rather than having some huge elaborate world with lore and backstory and etc. The themes might be deep, but the story itself isn't. If that makes any sense. It also has a manga-esque sequel done by Tokyo Pop, apparently? Someone's gonna patron that one someday, I can just tell. But in the meantime, let's dig into the first comic connected with the movie, Marvel Super Special number 40, Labyrinth.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
The cover is just the theatrical release poster of the film. It's a very nice poster, drawn by Ted Kokonis, but it's hard to judge this as a comic cover when it wasn't intended to be. The official comics adaptation of the spectacular new Jim Henson film. Unlike all those unofficial adaptations of crappy old Jim Henson films. We open in a park where we meet Sarah, played in the film by a young Jennifer Connelly. As the harsh wind whips the branches across the cloud-filled, eerie sky, a beautiful young woman emerges from the trees, and midway across the glade, she suddenly stops and calls, "Where the hell did I park?" "Give me the child. I have fought my way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City to take back what you have stolen." Whoa now, Sarah! I think that's a little extreme. Couldn't we just reform whoever stole your child? Maybe passing some redundant laws that already exist that they can ignore? "My will is as strong as yours, and my kingdom is great." See, you say that, but apparently you don't have a functioning post office, so you have to deliver this message yourself. However, she stops and then picks up a book, revealing that she's actually reciting lines from it. The movie actually showing that the book itself is called The Labyrinth. It's convenient when your characters have the novelization of their movie to call upon for details. "My kingdom is great, and you have no power over me." The weather, on the other hand, certainly has some power over her as lightning and thunder have begun and rain starts to pour. More importantly, though, she realizes that she's been doing her LARPing much later than she had intended and has to run back home with her dog, Merlin. She arrives home to find her stepmother waiting for her, but insists the dog not come in with her. "He's soaking wet, but it's pouring." "To the garage, come on." Oh no, she's gonna make him follow in his namesake and put him in the garage freezer. Her stepmother says that her parents rarely ever go out and Sarah has made them late, but Sarah retorts that they go out every weekend. Her stepmother, in turn, replies that she only asks her to babysit if it won't interfere with her plans. How would you know? You don't know what my plans are. You don't ask me. I'm assuming you would tell if you had a date, Sarah. And frankly, a date would be a good idea. A 15-year-old girl should have more dates. Why can't you be more busy with your own personal life and prevent your father and I from going out on our dates? Her father comes out holding her baby brother, but she storms up to her room. I don't know what to do anymore. She treats me like a wicked stepmother in a fairy tale. God, you tell her to sift some lentils out of some ashes to prevent her from going to the festival just once, and suddenly you're a wicked stepmother. The comic includes a detail the movie just barely inferred, that Sarah's actual mother left them. Whether that means she died or just abandoned the family isn't clear, though. In any case, her father goes upstairs to try to talk to her, but she just tells him to hurry if he wants to make their show in time. You really wanted to talk to me, didn't you? Practically broke down the door. Yeah, look at all that damage he's doing to the door in this panel. Just the constant sound effects of banging and splintering wood and roars as he tries to bust through. Clearly he was really trying his damnedest. Lest you think she meant it sarcastically, her line delivery in the movie makes it clear she's serious. Not sure where we got the "you practically broke down the door" thing from when all he does in the movie is politely knock. We don't even get the knocking in the comic. She notices one of her stuffed animals, a teddy bear named Lancelot, missing and goes to check on her baby brother Toby, correctly presuming that her stepmother took the bear from her room and gave it to him. I hate her, and I hate you. Oh, someone save me and take me from this awful place. God, what I wouldn't give for some glam rock pop star to show up. Come on, Mark Bolan, I'm waiting for you! A group of creatures, some goblins, apparently somehow hear her pleas and listen in as the baby starts crying. All right, hush now, Toby. Do you want me to tell you a story? A story about a beautiful young girl whose stepmother always made her stay with the baby? Sis, I am developing diaper rash as we speak. No, I don't want to hear this. And of the king of the goblins who fell in love with the girl and gave her special powers. Admittedly, those powers were limited to knowing where the salt and pepper shakers were located in any given house, but they were still special. One night, when the baby had been particularly cruel, she called the goblins for help. Say the right words, the goblin told her, and we'll take the baby to Goblin City, and you'll be free forever. Yeah, sounds like a good deal until you realize her brother is getting free room and board for life while getting an apprenticeship with the goblins that will lead to a long and fulfilling career while she's still stuck in suburbia. And you have to explain to your parents and the cops how you gave away your brother to goblins who didn't even give you money or anything for him. The girl knew that the Goblin King would keep the baby in his castle forever, so she suffered in silence. And Toby cries some more. I said she suffered in silence! So frustrated by the baby's crying, she finally calls out, I wish the goblins would come and take you away right now! And that happens. As an owl scratches at the window to get in, goblins appear and Toby is vanished. The clock on the mantle transforms so it has 13-hour markings on it. She shoos off the various goblins with a broom, something not in the movie actually, but it looks like Dracula has decided to show up from the window. No, it's Jareth the Goblin King, played by the incomparable David Bowie. An early draft of the script apparently would have revealed that this is an illusion, that the real Jareth is actually a sniveling goblin that resembles the others in the film. Otherwise, there's no explanation why the King of the Goblins is a really tall, attractive, human-looking dude. Or maybe it's an Invader Zim thing and goblin leadership is decided by how tall someone is. Jareth tells her that she's free now, but naturally Sarah did not actually mean what she said. It was in anger and frustration. However, Jareth says she said what she said and it's done. Just go back to your room and your books and costumes. Dragon Con is next month and you need to get started on a cosplay of me right away. I've brought you a very special gift, Sarah.
A new car!
No, it's a crystal ball that he says will show her dreams. But he'll only give it to her if she forgets about her brother. I can't. It isn't that I don't appreciate what you're trying to do for me, but I want my brother back! Kudos for at least thanking him for the gesture. It's clear Jareth doesn't mean any harm and legitimately thinks he's doing her a favor. However, her rejection causes him to transform the ball into a snake. How about this? Would you like a snake instead? The snake can also show you your dreams, but only in the form of regurgitated mouse corpses. Jareth says that the only way to retrieve her brother is to go to his castle beyond the Goblin City, through the labyrinth surrounding the place. and they are whisked to a cliff overlooking the realm. You have 13 hours to solve the labyrinth before your baby brother becomes one of us forever. Oh, sorry, 12 hours. Daylight savings time hit while we were talking. Jareth teleports away, and Sarah walks down to the edge of the labyrinth, encountering a small creature who's spraying some kind of poison on some fairies. She's outraged, but when she picks up the fairy to check on it, it bites her. What do you expect fairies to do? I thought they did nice things, like granting wishes. Shows how much you know, then. Yeah, Sarah, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but fairies are actually kind of the assholes of mythology. Still, she disapproves of him just killing them like bugs. You're horrible! No, I'm not. I'm Hoggle. I keep telling Jareth that we need name tags, but he says it'll ruin the vibes. She asks if he knows the way into the labyrinth, and he says maybe, but her attempts at a follow-up question are met with a shrug. Hoggle explains that she needs to ask the right question. It's something that I felt needed a little more clarification in the movie. The implication seems to be that the denizens of the kingdom will be honest with her, but what question she asks needs to be very specific, nothing inferred. And thus she rephrases, asking how to get into the labyrinth, and he opens a set of doors. The outer edge of the labyrinth seems to be just a long corridor, and she grows frustrated with his lack of guidance, so he heads back through the doors. Thanks for nothing, Hogwart. It's Hoggle! Even I don't want anything to do with that moldy turf! She travels down one way for a while, but doesn't seem to be getting anywhere until she runs into a small talking worm. You know how to get through the labyrinth? No, I'm just a worm, and my GPS hasn't been updated in years. Sarah says she can't find any openings deeper into the labyrinth, but the worm explains that there are openings everywhere, helping her see that it's an optical illusion. It only looks like there's only wall there, but what you're actually seeing is the wall on the other side of the opening. She locates said opening and starts going through, but the worm directs her to go in the opposite direction. If she'd gone that way, she'd have gone straight to that terrible castle. Okay, but that just means that the maze really sucks if a single path turn this far out is actually a direct line to the castle. The comic cuts out what is probably the most famous and memorable part of the movie, David Bowie singing Magic Dance to the Goblins, opening with the "You Remind Me of the Babe" exchange, which really just reveals that Jareth is a huge fan of The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. It's weird that it's removed entirely. Obviously I didn't expect them to sing the song in the comic, but you'd think they'd have part of the exchange at least to lead into some dialogue to fill in the section. In any case, Sarah tries to help mark her path through the labyrinth with her lipstick, drawing arrows on some tiles, but unbeknownst to her for a bit, tiny creatures under the tiles pop up and flip said tiles over. After a bit, she realizes what's happened, and thus is truly lost, until she comes across two creatures guarding two doors. They're definitely on the more fantastical, almost resembling playing cards that can be reversed up or down, though with only a single pair of legs despite two heads and two sets of arms. They explain that their doors lead to two paths, one towards the castle, and the other to certain death. Your Goblin City tax is at work, I see. It's your classic, one of us always lies, one of us always tells the truth kind of things. I liked Rick and Morty's solution.
You ever fuck this guy's wife?
Yes. Well, how about that? He guessed right.
However, she deduces the classical answer to the puzzle. What would the other guard say is the correct door? Because if the other guard is a liar, they'll point to the wrong door, but if the guard who is asked is a liar, then they have to answer incorrectly about what the other guard would do and point to the wrong door as well. Mind you, this is only dependent on whether they also stipulate that you can only ask a single question, since otherwise you can just ask what's 2 plus 2 and figure out which one is lying. In any case, she steps through the door and falls into a pit. Yeah, this is why the riddle usually has a sign that stipulates the condition, Sarah. If the guards themselves say it, that just means that both of them could be liars. In reality, it's not certain death. Instead, a bunch of arms emerge from the walls and catch her. Unfortunately, the comic doesn't depict them like the movie does, where a group of hands come together to form a face to speak with her, instead just having a bunch of dialogue balloons connected to the hands come out to talk to her, explaining that they are helping hands. They ask her if she'd like to go up or down, and she says down since she's already been up. And they drop her. Fortunately, it must not be a very long drop since she easily survives. Jareth is watching all this on his crystal ball, frustrated that she's entered the oubliette, saying that she shouldn't have made it this far. Well, the dwarf is about to lead her back to the beginning again. Nah, she reached a checkpoint, so she'll respawn down here. And indeed, Hoggle is there waiting, offering to help her out of the oubliette, but not further into the labyrinth. She offers her bracelet if he'll help her navigate the place, or at least as far as he's capable of taking her. He accepts. What's this anyway? Plastic. As long as it tastes good, I guess. He leads her into a hallway full of giant faces on the walls that speak to them. Don't go on! Go back while you still can! Look, Olmec, when we want your opinion, we'll ask for it. Hoggle explains that they're false alarms, that there are a ton of them in the labyrinth, especially as you get deeper into it. So, do you think all these various creatures that live in the labyrinth ever have, like, community meetings or anything? They then come across a beggar who throws off their rags to reveal Jareth. He questions what Hoggle is doing. Tell me, Hoggle, can it be you're helping the girl? Of course not, sir. I'm taking her back to the beginning. And what's this plastic trinket around your wrist? Oh, do you like it? I got it at Claire's, your majesty. If I thought you were betraying me, it'd be head first in the bog of eternal stench. And not the nice one either, the one inside the strip mall off the main freeway. He asks Sarah if she's enjoying the labyrinth, and she says it's been a piece of cake. In the movie, he decides to combat her by cheating, advancing the clock by a few hours, but in the comic, they cut that. Instead, he simply summons the Cleaners, a massive spinning drill with smaller drills attached to it that sweeps through the oubliettes' corridors and is heading right at them. I feel like calling this the Cleaners when this friggin' blender is about to spray blood and guts and organs everywhere is a bit of an oversight. They find a doorway and manage to push it open, narrowly avoiding the Cleaners as it continues down the hallway. Sarah pissed at Hoggle because he claimed he was taking her back to the start. He claims he was lying to Jareth, though she's distrustful of him now. He admits he's a coward and Jareth scares him. You don't want to know what he does with those balls when he's mad at you. He also explains that the bog of eternal stench is as bad as it sounds. The smell gets everywhere, and if even a bit of the water there touches you, you will never smell good again. They emerge into a courtyard, and Hoggle says Sarah's on her own now. But she's pissed, saying he's cheating her, even though the deal was as far as he could take her. That doesn't mean it was right to the castle door or something. However, she is a petty one and grabs Hoggle's collection of jewels off of his belt, saying he can have them back when they reach the center. Our hero, everybody, a jerky thief. The two soon encounter an old guy with some kind of bird on his head that's also a hat. She introduces Hoggle as a friend of hers, to his surprise, and kind of mine. Friends generally don't steal something from each other to force them to risk their life for you. Still, she asks about getting to the castle, and he says this. Young woman, the way forward is sometimes the way backwards, and sometimes the way backwards is the way forward.
There is logic in what he says.
This accomplishes nothing. Still, she gives him a ring for the wisdom, and they go off. I think the comic tries to imply that she needs to walk backwards to get to the new area, but that's mostly inference on my part because that doesn't happen in the movie. Hoggle asks about being called her friend. Because you are. Maybe not much of a friend, but the only one I've got in this place. Well, maybe if you'd actually tried to make friends with the false alarms. They hear a loud roar and Hoggle runs away in fear. Sarah, however, wants to know what caused it and finds a group of goblins jabbing at some larger creature hung up by its legs. In the movie, you can see more clearly that they have, weird skinless creatures biting him at the end of these poles. The comic has the poles all one color, so it's less evident that they're living beings. There's something else different from movie to comic. In the comic, Sarah decides to help by picking up a nearby rock and chucking it at them. In the movie, however, the rocks aren't just there.
Rolling rock?
The goblins run off, and Sarah helps the creature, who identifies itself as Ludo. Goblins mean to Ludo. Ludo just wanted to sell AI chatbot to them. Ludo has no idea how to get to the castle either, but the two soon find themselves at another set of doors, this time having talking door knockers on them. They don't know what's on the other side of either door, and Sarah has to get the knocker ring back in the mouth of one in order to open it, instead of just manually tapping it against the knocker plate. But yeah, they go through and find themselves in a forest, though the ground opens up and swallows Ludo. She doesn't see it happen, so from Sarah's perspective, he just vanishes, and is soon met by this weird bird-like being. Back over to Hoggle, he thinks that maybe he should go and help Sarah, but Jareth teleports in to throw some cold water on that, threatening him with the swamp again. Jareth instead has another plan, which the comic does something slightly different from the movie. There, he takes one of his little crystal balls and transforms it into a peach. Here, he just summons the peach from nothing. Or maybe the ball is just so transparent in the comic we couldn't see it. Back with Sarah, more of the bird-like beings come in, revealing that they can take their own heads off and toss them around. This is actually a whole song and dance number in the movie, And if I have to complain about anything about this film, it feels like there are a lot of these kind of weird non sequitur segments where she just meets a weird character and it contributes nothing to the plot, nor is it that amusing. Your mileage may vary on this segment, but like the door knockers bit wasn't really that funny, nor was the wisdom of the old guy with the bird hat. And I know, not every scene has to advance the plot, but like, it just comes across as padding sometimes when it doesn't at least provide something to the overall film, its themes, some laughs, all that, and thus it feels like it's dragging a bit. Now, while I don't care for this sequence, it at least does lead to the creatures deciding to pull off her head, and thus she needs to be rescued by Hoggle with a rope, though of course the comic, since it has no music or anything, actually makes a weird editing choice. The creatures tell Sarah that they can help her get to the castle. We cut to Jareth watching Sarah and taunting her, and then suddenly back with Sarah, she's running away from the creatures in fear. What happened between those bits in the comic that made her suddenly run off? But yeah, Hoggle saves her, pulling her onto a wall of the labyrinth with a rope. Jareth in the movie, but not the comic, had warned Hoggle not to be kissed by her or else he'd turn him into the Prince of Stench, and he apparently decides to live up to that. Sarah kisses him in thanks, and then a trap door opens, the two falling right into the bog of eternal stench, aka flatulent swamp, given the sound effects used in the film. The smell is horrible, and they just barely manage to avoid falling into the muck, reuniting with Ludo, who is also distressed by the smell. Needing to get out of there quickly, they find a bridge, and its guard, a fox-like being named Sir Didymus. No one can cross this bridge without my permission. Submit your bridge crossing permission form in triplicate with the secretary at the gate. See you in 3 to 6 weeks. Didymus seems to have a weird view on the world. Not the fact that he's acting like a chivalrous knight in his speech, but rather he can't smell the awful stench. He seems to be in denial about his fighting prowess or the fighting prowess of others, etc. Hoggle does not give a crap about this and manages to run across the bridge while Didymus is distracted by Ludo. And you shall not pass either! Ah, great, Sarah's undoing here is by someone else doing a LARP, this time of Gandalf and Lord of the Rings. Didymus fights Ludo, a lot more elaborate of a sequence in the movie, and says that Ludo is a true and valiant knight. He still refuses to let them cross without his permission. Then may we have your permission? I guess. Yes. Once again, it feels like the exact wording of all this stuff really matters in this world, but it's not really dwelled on. I think it has to do with Sarah reading from the Labyrinth book at the start, like she needs to follow how things went in the book to proceed, but she never comments anything to that effect. They start crossing. Have no fear, sweet madam. This bridge has lasted 1,000 years. And the bridge collapses under her. Sorry, I meant to say that this bridge hasn't had any maintenance done on it in 1,000 years. Sarah is hanging on by some branches above the water, and Ludo howls, revealing that he has the power to summon up the rocks, hence the rocks that moved over to Sarah earlier. She drops down onto the larger ones under her.
Yeah, Rolling Rock on the Rolling Rocker.
Ludo, that was incredible!
Rocks, friends. Rocks help Ludo move couch.
Hoggle, on the other side, contemplates tossing the peach into the water, but Jareth once again appears and threatens him. You know, if you're watching all this and can teleport at whim, why not just appear behind her and shove her into the water or something? Didymus reveals his mighty steed, a dog that he rides in the back of, and one that looks quite a bit like Sarah's dog Merlin. Not that she comments on that. Hoggle catches up to them as Ludo mentions that he's hungry. Sarah says that they can't stop now, but then Hoggle gives the peach to Sarah, and she takes a bite out of it, even though it was Ludo who said he was hungry here. Would have made As the World Falls Down more interesting if it was Ludo being wooed by Jareth, though. This tastes strange. Tastes like crystal ball? Or grape jelly and mustard. She starts to collapse, and Hoggle curses himself and Jareth for doing this. Everything's dancing. Sarah has made the classic blunder of all fairy tales. Never accept fruit. Jareth, watching this, unleashes orbs right from his castle and they fly towards her. And they contain tiny dancers. Oh geez, now I really am tripping balls! This leads into probably the second most well-known part of Labyrinth, and my own personal favorite, mostly for the music. The song As the World Falls Down. Sarah finds herself in a masquerade with Jareth as the song plays, our heroine seeming lost among the almost mocking laughter of the other dancers, but Jareth is providing a mysterious but stable presence. The lyrics speak of how much devotion he can offer, poetic affirmations of giving her everything she wants and comfort from pain and confusion. It's sadly only one page in the comic, but it gets the idea across as Jareth dances with her, saying that this vision doesn't have to be merely a dream. And Sarah, both in the movie and in the comic, seems to be tempted by this. There is something to be said for a romanticism of this sort of situation. A powerful, otherworldly figure takes a special interest in you in particular, promising you your dreams and fantasies and demonstrating he has the ability to make it happen. It can be very appealing and stokes the imagination, kind of like a Harlequin romance novel sort of thing. Submitting to this figure as he woos you with everything you've ever wanted. It's easy to understand what's so alluring about the scenario and how it comes across as very romantic. But on the other hand, she's 15 and he's a grown-ass man. Knock that crap off right now! The comic doesn't do justice to her rejection, where instead of forcing her way through the crowd and shattering the illusion, she just kinda runs away into the wind or something? I don't know. But the result is the same. She finds herself in a junkyard and her memory is fuzzy. An old crone covered in junk asks where she's going, but she can't remember. I know I was searching for something. Of course, dearie. We're all searching for something, aren't we? Me, I'm looking for a good back brace. Can you guess why? The crone gives her Lancelot teddy bear, which Sarah thinks that might have been it, and she finds herself teleported back to her room, thinking that maybe this was all a dream. But when she tries to leave the room, the crone is there and tells her it's best to stay inside. The crone just lists off all the various bits of stuff and things and toys she's gotten there, but Sarah finally remembers that she's looking for Toby, and that in the end, all of her toys are just junk compared to that. Ludo breaks through the walls and pulls her up out of a hole. I don't know how the peach put her in said hole, but yeah, she's awake again and reunited with Ludo and Didymus. Consequently, the comic has neglected to say Didymus' name until this point. They're at the gates of the Goblin City, but it's guarded by some kind of weird giant mech suit of armor that swings an axe at them. Fortunately, Hoggle has seen the error of his ways and jumps down, kicking off the thing's head and tossing out the goblin that was piloting it, and consequently breaking the suit. Hoggle apologizes, in his own way, and the group forgives him, Sarah even returning his jewels. Jareth is told about their arrival, and he's done playing around, ordering Toby be hidden and unleashing the full might of his forces into the city after our heroes. Primarily because Jareth is kind of a big stinky cheater. Our heroes evade the goblins, eventually finding shelter at the top of a tall tower. Fortunately, Ludo has the necessary solution, howling and calling forth a massive amount of stones to fly at the goblin army.
Oh, look! Rocks!
With the army routed, Sarah declares that she needs to face Jareth alone, though Hoggle says that if she should need them, they're there. Inside the castle, the place is transformed into MC Escher's relativity drawing. Beware, Sarah. I've been generous up to now, but I can be cruel. Generous? What have you done that was generous? Well, I kidnapped your brother. I tried to murder you in the oubliette. I tried to get you to fall into a swamp that would taint you with a noxious scent. I drugged you, and then I've sent an army to murder you. I feel like I've been a pretty decent guy, and you should totally date me now. He actually does try to say that kidnapping her brother, as she had asked, is being generous, but then says that he reordered time and turned the world upside down for her.
Space is warped and time is bendable.
Look, I still offer you a world of dreams. That's a Christmas ornament. Yeah, sorry, I kept dropping the glass ones and this is all I've got left. Just let me rule you and you can have everything you want. Jareth, the goblin creep. In the movie, there's a sequence where Sarah is trying to hunt down Toby in the shifting dimensions of the staircases that was cut here, so the fact that it's still in the art is pointless, because, well, it's just her talking to Jareth now. She also recites more of the book as she had at the start, but now just gets to the ending, including one line not in the film. It took me so long to realize this, Jareth, but now I know. You have no power over me. None. That I haven't given you. Yeah, but like, he still drugged you and tried to murder you, so I feel like he had some power. The clock strikes 13 and Jareth collapses, transforming back into an owl and flying off. Sarah finds herself back in her house as the owl flies away. She runs upstairs and finds Toby alive and well in his crib. She gives him the teddy bear, and the comic decides to spell out the symbolism directly.
Sarah had grown up. It was finally time to put away her toys.
There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
Her fellowship shows up in her room, saying that should she need them, they'll be there for her. But I do! I need you all! now and then in my life, for some reason or for no reason at all, I'll need you. And so our comic ends with them and several of the creatures she met on this little journey appearing there as well, saying that they'll all be there. And then in the film, they magic danced. Pretty sure we were just seeing the movie's rap party there. This comic is an okay adaptation. Not surprising that we don't get, say, any of the lyrics of the songs, and what they chose to cut out made sense. There's not a lot that wasn't in the film, a few lines here or there, and really its biggest issue is just in the sequential storytelling at points. Though that could just be a result of them not having access to the movie to see how actions occur in it. There's a lot about the story that's up to interpretation, like whether or not any of it actually happened. For all we know, the whole thing was indeed just a dream she had, or some elaborate self-insert fanfic that she was writing based on the Labyrinth book and her own stuffed animals. Indeed, we see at the start several plushies and statues and whatnot that resemble the characters. There's even a simple music box featuring her dress and the tune from As the World Falls Down. However, given she keeps experiencing things unknown to her, it could very well have all been real, but by defeating the Goblin King as she did, she pretty much deposed him, and the creatures are just literally like, yeah, we love you, Sarah, for what you did, and we're just gonna hang out together whenever you want. It doesn't really matter if it was real or not, since the point of it is her character growth. The movie is a coming-of-age tale, a great big metaphor for growing up and leaving behind imagination and play for more adult responsibilities. However, what the ending tells us, and thankfully so, is that while you may be giving up that stuff on the regular, that doesn't mean you need to abandon it entirely. Toys and plays and books and fantasy and make-believe are perfectly fine for adults too, just as long as they don't get in the way of what's really important. And in this case, it was the life of her brother that she loved. And if this was all a dream, then kudos to Jim Henson for directing it in a way that made it feel very dreamlike, which isn't always easy to pull off. I don't know if Labyrinth is a great film, but it is a good one, and deserved a lot more acclaim than it got back in the day. Next time, quick break from the Patreon-sponsored extravaganza. It's February, so you know what that means. The annual Youngblood review.
It's not fair.
You say that so often. I wonder what your basis for comparison is.
This ain't my first rodeo, Ziggy. Prince abducted my dad once and made me navigate a giant warren. Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Fourth Wall. Thanks for watching.